Knight g8 to f6.
Bishop f1 to d3.
Pawn c7 to c5.
Pawn c2 to c3.
Knight b8 to c6.
Knight g1 to e2.
Pawn c5 takes d4.
Pawn c3 takes d4.
Knight d7 to b6.
Pawn a2 to a3.
Pawn f7 to f6.
Pawn e5 takes f6.
Queen d8 takes f6.
Knight d2 to f3.
Pawn e6 to e5.
Pawn d4 takes c5.
Knight c6 takes e5.
Knight f3 takes c5.
Queen f6 takes e5.
Castle kingside.
Bishop f8 to e7.
Knight e2 to g3.
Castle kingside.
Queen d1 to c2.
Pawn h7 to h5.
Bishop c1 to d2.
Bishop e7 to d6.
Rook a1 to e1.
Queen e5 to f6.
Bishop d2 to e3.
Pawn h5 to h4.
Knight g3 to h5.
Queen f6 to e5.
Bishop e3 to f4.
Queen e5 takes h5.
Bishop f4 takes d6.
Pawn h4 to h3.
Bishop d6 takes f8.
Pawn h3 takes g2.
Bishop d3 to h7. Check.
Queen h5 takes h7.
Queen c2 takes h7. Check.
King g8 takes h7.
King g1 takes g2.
Bishop c8 to f5.
Bishop f8 to d4.
Bishop f5 to d3.
Rook f1 to g1.
Rook a8 to d8.
Pawn f2 to f3.
Knight b6 to c8.
King g2 to h1.
Pawn d5 to d4.
Rook e1 to e5.
Pawn b7 to b6.
Rook g1 to g4.
Rook d8 to d7.
Rook e5 to h5. Checked.
King h7 to g8.
Rook h5 to h4.
Bishop d3 to e2.
Rook g4 takes d4.
Bishop e2 takes f3. Check.
King h1 to g1.
Bishop f3 to c6.
Rook h4 to f4.
Rook d7 takes d4.
Rook f4 takes d4.
King g8 to f7.
Rook d4 to f4. Checked.
King f7 to e6.
Bishop d4 to c3.
Knight c8 to d6.
Bishop c3 takes g7.
Knight d6 to f5.
Bishop g7 to c3.
Knight f5 to d6.
Pawn h2 to h4.
Knight d6 to e4.
Bishop c3 to g7.
King e6 to d5.
Pawn h4 to h5.
Bishop c6 to d7.
Bishop g7 to f6.
Knight e4 to g3.
Rook f4 to d4. Checked.
King d5 to c6.
Rook d4 takes d7.
King c6 takes d7.
Pawn h5 to h6.
Knight g3 to e2. Check.
King g1 to g2.
Knight e2 to f4. Check.
King g2 to f3.
Knight f4 to g6.
Pawn h6 to h7.
King d7 to e6.
Bishop f6 to d4.
King e6 to f5.
Pawn d2 to d4.
Knight g6 to h4, check.
Kf3 to e3.
Knight h4 to g6.
Pawn d4 to d5.
King f5 to g4.
Pawn a3 to a4.
King g4 to f5.
Pawn a4 to a5.
King f5 to e6.
Pawn a5 to a6.
King e6 to d5.
Ke3 to d3.
Knight g6 to f4, check.
Kd3 to c3.
Knight f4 to g6.
Bishop d4 takes d6.
Pawn a7 takes b6.
Pawn a6 to a7.
King d5 to e6.
Pawn a7 to a8, promoting to queen.
King e6 to e7.
Queen a8 to f3.
King e7 to e6.
Kc3 to d4.
King e6 to e7.
Queen f3 to f5.
Knight g6 to h8.
Queen f5 to e5. Checked.
King e7 to f7.
Queen e5 takes h8.
King f7 to e7.
Queen h8 to g7. Checked.
King e7 to e6.
Pawn h7 to h8, promoting to queen.
King e6 to f5.
Queen g7 to f6. Checked.
King f5 to g4.
Queen h8 to h4. Checkmate.